long, long time ago, somewhere in the south of India, nestled away in the forest hills, there was a small village. Now, the village was almost cut off, had no safe drinking water, no sanitation, cramped up houses. Life was hard there. But the people in the village lived in a kind of perpetual enchantment. And their enchanter was Nambi, the storyteller. He was about 60 or 70, or maybe 80 or 180. Who could say? He could not read or write, but he could come up with a story in his head at the rate of one a month. And each story took nearly 10 days to narrate. Now, his home was a little temple at the end of the village, and in the temple there was a stone image of goddess Shakti, a symbol of divine power and strength. And he spent most of his time sitting under the banyan tree. So the banyan tree, as you may or may not know, are considered sacred in India, and they are worshipped by many even to this day. So he used to spend his time sitting under the banyan tree, and on the nights he had a story to tell. He lit a small lamp and he placed it in a niche in the trunk of the banyan tree, telling the villagers the storyteller was calling them. And as the moon went up, men, women, and children, they all gathered under the banyan tree. But the storyteller would not appear yet. He would be sitting inside the temple, eyes shut before the goddess, deep in meditation. And then when he came out, he began the story, always with a question. 1,000 years ago, not very far from there, what do you think there was? It was not the weed-covered waste. It is now for the donkeys to roll in. No. It was the kingdom, the capital of the king. And the king would be Ashoka, Dashrath, whatever name came to his mind. Beginning thus, he would go on without a pause for 3 hours. By then, brick by brick, the palace of the king was raised. He described the dazzling court where all the ministers, the kings, and the subjects sat. He described all the paintings and the trophies that hung on the wall. In the adjacent room of the palace, musicians from all around the world gathered, and they sang, and Nambi sung these songs again for his audience. It was storytelling on an epic scale. First day barely conveyed the setting, and Nambi's audience as yet had no idea who was coming into the story. Now the light in the niche would be seen 2 or 3 days later again and again throughout the bright half of the month. Now kings and queens, heroes and villains, saints and assassins, they all came alive in the world that was created under the banyan tree. Nambi's voice rose and fell in an exquisite rhythm, and the moonlight and the hour completed the magic. People, they laughed with Nambi, they wept with him, they adored their heroes, they scorned their villains, and they gasped when they saw a conspiracy happen, and they feverishly prayed to the goddess for a happy ending. Now on the day the story ended, the entire gathering went inside the temple and bowed before the goddess. By the time the next moon came, Nambi would be ready with another story, and he never repeated his stories. People of the village considered him a miracle, and they lived on his words of wisdom. You know, life otherwise was very hard and lonely and dull for them. So this went on for many years. One moon, Nambi lit the lamp, the audience came, the old man sat down, and he began the story. When King Vikramaditya lived, his minister was, and he paused. He could not get beyond it. So he made a fresh beginning. There once was a king. When he started fumbling and he didn't know what he was saying. And he said, "Oh my God, what has come over me? I know the story. I knew the whole of it a minute ago. What was it about? What was it about?" And the audience saw that he was getting frustrated, and they were like, "Oh wait, it's okay, relax, take your time. You're probably tired." "Tired? Do I look tired to you?" "No, just give me a minute and I will tell you the whole story." And then there was silence. Now the audience waited patiently. It was something new for them. Slowly, silently, they started to slip away. And Nambi was left alone. For the first time in his life, he felt old, really old. Tomorrow I'll make it up. He lit the lamp. The following night, the audience came in faithfully. He had spent the entire day praying to the goddess not to desert him. And he went on with the story. He went on for an hour without a pause. He was so relieved. But then, after a few minutes, he felt dried up. He struggled hard. And then what happened? What happened? Now, and then there was a pause that lasted an hour. The audience, they rose without a word and they went home. Nambi tried again 2 or 3 days later with another installment of the story, but then again he could not get beyond the first few minutes. The gathering started to dwindle. Fewer people began to take notice of the lamp in the niche. Nambi was shattered. He was consumed by the thoughts of his own failure. He shut himself in the temple and he hardly ate any food and spent his entire day sitting motionless in meditation. And as the next moon peeped over the hill, Nambi came out. He lit the lamp. The villagers returning home from work, they saw this. And only a handful of them turned up that night. Where are the others? I'm not going to tell the story today or tomorrow because it's a mighty story. Everyone in the village has to come here. Everyone must hear it. So the word spread around. And the following night, as the lamp was lit, a huge crowd gathered under the banyan. Everybody was very happy and very excited that the storyteller had regained his powers. When everyone has settled, Nambi came out and he addressed his audience. And he said, "Friends, it is the goddess who gives us the powers, and it is she who takes these away. Nambi is just an old, senile man. He speaks when she has something to say, and he's dumbstruck when she has nothing to say. But what is the use of rose or lavender or jasmine when it has lost its scent? What is the lamp for when all the oil is gone? Goddess be thanked. These are my last words on this earth, and this is my greatest story." The audience hardly understood what he meant. They were like, "Aren't you going to tell us a story?" And Nambi just shook his head and he gestured with his hands that he had spoken his last words on this earth. And his life, he lived for a few more years. After that was one great, complete silence. Now there was an old banyan tree that was just outside my house in India. It was more than a tree. It seemed like a forest standing there all by itself. This story of the storyteller that I read under that banyan tree is the one that made me fall in love with storytelling. Thank you.